Hi, my name is Christian and I am a graphic designer based in Massachusetts. In this video, we'll be going over my notes for Deke McClelland's one-on-one mastery class, chapters 7 and 8, going over symbols and graphs. And first thing, we'll go over symbols. So I've created these two circular objects. I'm going to select my first one and I'm going to create a symbol from this object. And to do so, I'm going to go into the symbols menu here, and to access the symbols menu, if you don't have it here, is you can go to Window, Symbols, and the shortcut is Shift Control F11 or Shift Option F11. And once we are in the Symbols panel, you can see that I have this object selected. One way to create a symbol from this is to click on the New Symbol button, and you'll get the Symbol Options menu here. I'm going to cancel this. And I just want to show you the second way is to click on your object again to drag it into the symbols menu. And again, you'll get the symbol options menu here. And you can rename or you can name your object. So I'm going to name it circular triangle. I'm going to change the export type to graphic. If you notice here in the information panel, it just says that these two export types are just for a Flash import. So graphic and movie clip are the same in Illustrator, makes no difference. The symbol type, dynamic symbol versus static symbol, it all depends on whether you want the symbol to be malleable, like you can change it, or if you just want it to be a static symbol. For this case, we're just going to leave this as a static symbol for now. You can always change this later as well. Registration is the center is fine. Enable guides for 9-slice scaling. We don't need this for this symbol. We will go over this option later in the video though. So we're going to click OK. Great, so we've created our symbol here. And if you want to create another instance, so we have our symbol here, the original. If you want to create another instance of the symbol, you can grab it or click on it in the symbols panel and drag it onto the artboard to place it that way. You can also just select it within the symbols panel and go to the bottom here, go to place symbol instance. You click on that and it will be placed. Another option is if you wanted to replace the symbol with something else. Let's say I want to replace it with this house symbol. I'm going to click on the house symbol while I have the symbol that I want to replace selected as well. And you'll notice that there's a little black square around this symbol. I'm going to go up here to the menu here, the extend menu, and I'm going to go to replace symbol. And as soon as I click it, you can see that that symbol has been replaced with the house symbol. Now we're going to go into dynamic symbols. I'm going to go into my next layer here called dynamic symbols. And these are some effects that I've applied to our original symbol. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to select our symbol here, the circular triangle, and I'm going to go to the bottom here and go to symbol options. Click on that, and I got the symbol options again. And like I said, we can change it from static to dynamic at any time. So I'm going to click on dynamic to change it into a dynamic symbol. Click OK. I'm going to click and drag this onto the artboard. Great. So I have this here, and I'm just going to do that again, and one more time, and just even another time. And then also I'm just going to do this just so we don't forget about that method to do it as well, to place it onto an artboard. And I'm just going to delete this now. This is just more of an example. I don't want it to be distracting. I'm going to delete this as well. So we've got these 6 instances of a symbol. And why would you do a dynamic symbol versus a static symbol? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create some boxes in the background just to help us with these designs. And as you can see, they show up differently because there's no contrast between the two. So one thing you could do is if I select this one, let's say I just want to edit this one for this particular situation, what I can do is I can go back to our symbols panel here, and I can break the link. And what this does is it makes it so it's no longer a symbol, and I can go in, double click to get to the isolation mode, and I can double click again because this is a group. I just want to target this circle right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a stroke, in the appearance panel, add a stroke, and that stroke I'm going to make it white. I don't want it to be on top though, so you can see that this is the original black stroke. So I'm going to click on this and bring it. Oh, sorry. I'm going to click on it here and bring it underneath the stroke that we already have, and you can see that it's a 10-point inside. I want to change the stroke to. Well, we actually do it to outside. And instead of 10 points, I think we're going to do 5 points. Okay. And I'm just going to double click the artboard to get out of the isolation mode. So now this preserves a little bit more the original symbol, the kind of the look of it on a black background. The only problem is if I go in, and you can do this with any symbol, if I double click on it, you're going to see it's going to give you a message here just to say that you're going to edit the symbol, which I want to do. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to zoom in so I can show you guys what I'm doing. And let's say for some reason someone said we need to add a little bit more to this. It's looking a little plain. We need to add a little extra. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another circle inside here. I'm going to thin the stroke. So let's say 5. And I'm going to bring it behind what I'm currently working on. Let's say right there. But I want the triangle to, let's say, have a white fill. Like so. And when I double click out, you can see that all the other instances of this logo have that inner circle applied to them, which is great. What you can see though is, unfortunately, we weren't able to get that here because we broke the link from the symbol. This is no longer a symbol linked to this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to add a stroke like this to just one particular instance without breaking it as a symbol while continuing it to be a symbol. And that's why you would use a dynamic symbol. You're going to use the white arrow tool, and I'm going to select the outer edge here because I want to add a stroke around this circle. I already have my appearance panel open up, and you can see that I have 2 strokes. I actually already added a stroke, but normally you would need to add an extra stroke. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a white stroke. I'm going to click on the stroke here. I'm going to change it to outside, and I'm going to change the size to 5. And that's exactly the effect I wanted to do. So you can see that I've added the white stroke here, and just to demonstrate that we haven't destroyed our symbol like we did with this one, I'm going to go into our normal symbol here, our base symbol. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to duplicate, copy, and paste in front, which is Control C, Control F on a PC. That's Command C, Command F on a Mac. I'm going to hit Control left square bracket to bring that back 1. And I'm just going to scale it up. I'm doing that by holding Shift and Alt, Shift Option on a Mac, and just grabbing one of the anchors and scaling it down. I'm going to change the color here just to make it more apparent what we've done. And I'm just going to double click outside of the object on the artboard. I'm going to zoom out. And you can see that we've added this yellow ring to all instances of the symbol, including the one that we've edited manually. And this way, you can change one specific particular version of the symbol. And just one other thing I wanted to showcase you is that even with dynamic, you can do additional things. So let's say I wanted to add a stroke again. This time I'm going to change the stroke to align to stroke. I'm going to change the color to a blue, let's say. I'm going to bring this behind the current black stroke like so. And I'm going to apply an effect to it just to show that you can apply effects. I want to make sure the stroke is selected. You can apply effects here, dynamic effects that you can change. It's not a static effect. Gaussian blur, I'm going to preview it. I want to make it a little bit more extreme so you can see exactly what I'm doing. Okay, I'm going to do yellow just to make it so it matches our yellow already. And you can see that I've added this dynamic effect to just one version or one instance of the symbol. Yeah, so that's how you work with dynamic symbols. Saving symbols. Now that you've worked on this symbol and you want to be able to use it, let's say you're sharing this file with another designer, or you're working on multiple computers and you want to be able to save this symbol so that you can use it in different files across different computers, like I said, or across different people. So in order to save the symbol, we're going to go into our symbol panel here. We're going to select the symbol we want to save, which is the circular triangle. And we're going to go into the symbol libraries menu here. And we click on it. The top option is to save symbols, and that's what we want to do. And the default location here is a user-defined location. You could also save it anywhere else, but just for this example, I'm going to save it in the default location. I'm going to save this as circular triangle, and I'm just going to click on save. Great. And let's say, for example, I'm just going to create a new file. And you can see that we don't have those symbols that we created. They are in the other file. If I tab over to Notes 04, you can see that these symbols, which I created in this document, are active in the symbols panel. But if I go into my new file, Untitled 1, I don't have them. I could obviously just copy and paste them from my other document. But let's say this is a completely different person. They don't have your original file. You just want to send them the symbols. Or this is a symbol that you use a lot. Like let's say you use it every day and you're working on hundreds and hundreds of different documents and files. It could be like a copyright, a trademark logo, or some other item that you use all the time, some symbol. To add it to the symbols menu within a document, you go down back to the symbol libraries menu here. And instead of save symbols, we're actually going to go down all the way to the bottom to user defined. And you can see that our circular triangle symbol is here. And it's going to open up its own little uh, symbols here, but I'm just going to drag it and bring it in. And you can see that it didn't just save the circular triangle. It saved all the symbols in that in our previous document. So we can bring them all in like so. And I can just exit out of here. And now I can work on the symbol or add that to the artwork in this new document. And that's how you save symbols. Now I've opened up Photoshop here to show you one other thing. You can create symbols within Illustrator, but you can also import ones from Photoshop. So first, let me show you what I'm talking about. So we're going to go into the custom shape tool here in Photoshop, and that is normally behind the rectangle tool here. But I'm going to go into the custom shape tool, and in the control bar here, you're going to see the shape. I'm going to click this drop down menu. You can see all the shapes that you have that you can use, and these are all vector, scalable, and you also have a gear here that you can click on to get additional shapes. So let's say I wanted to go in the objects. I'm going to click OK. You can see we've got totally different objects here. And let's say we want to take this hand and click on it. And now this is currently the active shape we're going to be drawing with. I'm going to hold shift and just draw out this hand. And it was filled with this red color. And let's say I want to bring this into Illustrator. I'm going to use the black path selection tool, or the black arrow right here. Marquee, select everything. You can see that it all has points, like it was a vector shape, like it was made in Illustrator. I'm going to hit Control C or Command C to copy. And I'm going to go into Illustrator. I'm going to open Illustrator. And I'm just going to hit Control V or Command V on a Mac. And now the paste options menu is going to come up. I'm going to paste as a compound shape, fully editable. And you can see that the path has been uh, pasted here. There's no fill. I'm just going to give it a fill so we can see it. Give it that red fill. And you can see that the hand has come back in. If I zoom in here, you can see also that all the paths are here as well. So it's almost as if we just created this in Illustrator. but it's not a symbol just yet. It's just a path. I'm going to bring up the symbols panel here, click on the new symbol button, and just going to call it red hand, and click OK. And now we've added this into our symbols in Illustrator. So that's one way if you want to grab symbols from Photoshop, and Photoshop has a lot of symbols already built into it. So you can check Photoshop out, grab anything that looks interesting to you. Next, I want to go over 9-slice scaling. So just for an example, I'm going to use these two objects. We have this is just kind of like a button. I'm just going to group it. And this is an arrow. It's already grouped. Great. So let's say you want to create these as symbols. Easy enough, right? So if I select the button here and go into my symbols panel, I can obviously click on the new symbol button here, and I'm just going to call it button. I prefer to make it a graphic. I'm going to keep it dynamic, and I'm going to click on enable guides for 9-slice scaling. Click OK. And you won't see much of a difference here until you double click on the symbol to edit the symbol. And now you can see that there's a difference, and that difference is that we have these guides here. And what these guides show you is the 9-slice scaling. So you have 9 different sections. You have the top left, top center, top right. You have all this middle and the bottom as well. So you have 9, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 little squares. And the center square is the one that will always be scaled, right? The corners will not be scaled, and the top and the bottom will be scaled horizontally, and the left and the right will be scaled vertically. So I have some effects here, and I'm going to zoom in just to show you. I have these curves here, and I don't want these curves to be stretched. I want those curves to be maintained. So I'm going to drag up the guidelines up past the curves and underneath, and it's okay to go even further. And for these ones, I can just keep going a little bit further out, like so. And I can zoom out, and I'm just going to double click on the artboard, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on it, or rather actually I'm going to click and drag another instance out. I'm going to click and drag another instance out. And when you're scaling, normally if you're scaling a symbol, you would want to hold shift to constrain the proportions to make sure it is the same and correct. But what you can do now that you have the 9-slice scaling is that you can drag this all the way out, and you can see that none of it has been affected, that the curve is still the same for the button here, that curve. Even if you go extremely vertical, the curve is still the same. And you can just manipulate the button as you see fit. Now, of course, if you go too crazy to one extreme or the other, you're going to get some distortion. And just to show you the same thing for the arrow, I'm just going to click on the arrow. I'm going to click and drag it into the symbols panel to create a new arrow yellow, I'm going to call it. And I'm going to save this as a movie clip just to show that there's no big difference. Dynamic is fine. Make sure to enable guides for 9-slice scaling. I'm going to click OK. And again, to edit this, I'm going to double click on it. Yes, I want to continue. And what I really don't want to scale is this portion here, this line. So I'm going to drag it out here. So this portion I want to scale fine. Now the issue you're going to find is that you're not going to be able to do anything where it's top to bottom. Maybe you want to say like this portion don't scale. And let's see if it works. I don't think it will. Let us click on place symbol instance. Oops, let me make sure my artboard is selected. Select, and I'll place a couple more. Oh, it's not working. And I'm just going to drag and drop the arrow to other versions of it. And I'm going to scale it. And you can see that the scaling is fine. It hasn't distorted anything. If you go up and down, you can see that there's some really weird scaling going on. I'm just going to drag out one more here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to break link, so it's no longer a symbol. I'm going to show you how this would normally act if you just stretched it out. So normally it's going to stretch every single element, right? It's going to stretch the feathers here. It's going to stretch the arrowhead and all the elements. And that's not what you want. You just want to stretch it, let's say, to the shaft of the arrow. That's why you would do the 9-slice scaling. Now let's say you did want to trick Illustrator into being able to move this vertically, or maybe you want it to work these together. I'm not going to go over that. Just want to make sure I'm recording. And that's how you go through 9-slice scaling. And it works great for arrows, like I've just shown you. But even better is that there is a custom arrowhead feature within Adobe Illustrator. And to do that, I'm going to want to go and show you guys that first you need to actually go to the arrowheads file. So there's an arrowheads file that you can edit, and editing that file will allow you to make your own custom arrowheads. And first, let me just show you what a custom arrowhead looks like. So if I draw a line on this layer, and let's say I give it a color, give it a stroke, in the stroke panel here, you can just click on stroke here. It is also located here, stroke panel. You can see that there's arrowheads, and there's a start and a end point of the path. And what you can do is you can scroll down, and there's a variety of arrows. So let's say the start arrow, we want it to be arrow 28, and the end, we want it to be arrow 30. What I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the weight, the stroke weight, just so we can see what we're doing. And we have a custom arrowhead. And what you can see is that the path can be kind of crazy, but the arrowhead will stay at the end or the beginning. And this is a great little feature that you have in Illustrator. But let's say if you wanted to create a custom arrowhead. So go to this location here if you're on a Windows, or go if you are in a Mac. And I already have a shortcut for that. So I'm just going to click on my shortcut to open my file. You're going to see this file here. And I've already made some changes to it. I'm just going to delete those changes. You should see the file something that resembles more like this. And just to be safe, the first thing you would want to do is to save this file in a different location. And I'm just going to save it on the desktop, just in case you need to return to this file. It is very rare that you're going to encounter any issues with this, but just in case, you want to have the original file. So next I'm going to just extend the artboard, Shift O to use the artboard tool. And I'm just going to drag this down so I can get more of an artboard. And I want to create a new set of arrows, 3 more. So I'm just going to select these, or arrow 13. I'm just going to select arrow 13. I'm going to drag it down, and I'm just going to duplicate with Control D or Command D to create 2 more, or 3 more. So we have 3 in total. Just going to rename this to Custom 1, Custom 2, and Custom 3. Now, just so you know, this naming here and these objects here, this is mainly for organization, for human interaction with these. You can read these if you need to, but just to go over some of the basics, this isn't a custom arrowhead until I have turned it into a symbol. So first, I'm going to break the symbol because these are all currently arrow 13. They're all just duplicates of this symbol. So I'm going to break the link. And now they're their own little objects. I'm going to edit just a little bit so we can just see that it's something different. Like so. Something not very beautiful, but just so we can show you that you can create a custom arrowhead. And what we're going to do is we're going to create this into a symbol. So we're going to go back to our symbols panel. You can see that all the arrowheads are here. And I even have some custom ones from before. I'm going to delete these custom ones though, because I don't want them interfering with what I'm showing you. These are just custom arrowheads that I created earlier while I was practicing this. So to create a symbol, I'm just going to drag and drop it into here. I'm going to call this custom one. And I'm just going to keep everything as you see, the standard. And now I have a custom one arrowhead. Down here, I'm just going to create another arrowhead. And let's say I want to do something that fans out like this. And I'm just using the pencil tool to edit it. If I was really working on a custom arrowhead, I would be doing maybe the pen tool or working on something a little bit more precise. But I just want to show you that this is something different than what we've created before. And also there are no arrowheads like this in the standard version. So I'm going to create this into a symbol by having everything selected. This time I'm just going to click on the new symbol button. I'm going to call this custom 2. And you can see that it's been added here in the symbols panel. And we're just going to create our third and last one. And for this one, we're going to do something a little different. Going to have a center here. Oops, I accidentally added it to the stroke there. Instead, I just want to do this. And I'm just going to change this to a gray. And just so you know, when you're working with arrowheads, it must be in grayscale. So just to make sure that I'm doing that, I'm going to edit the colors, convert to grayscale. And I'm just going to create this into a symbol with the new symbol button here in the symbols panel bar. Call this custom 3. Click OK. And I'm just going to zoom out. So we've created these 3 custom arrowheads. They're far from perfect, far from beautiful, but they're just here to demonstrate what I've done. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this file, and you just have to navigate to the location for your particular file where you found it originally. And for me, I've just been doing this so I think I've memorized it. Yes, there it is. And I'm going to save, and I'm going to replace it. And what you'll see here is an error message. It says it can't save the illustration. The file may be read-only, or the file is in use by another application. If you do not have the required permissions, please save the document with a different name or in a different folder or direction. But we need to save it as this name in that location in order to have it be a custom arrowhead. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to save this as Arrowhead 2 on the desktop. We're going to return to this later, because what I need to do is I need to make sure I have permissions to use the arrowhead, and I'm going to run Illustrator in administrator mode. So first I'm going to close out of this, and I'm going to close out of our notes 4. I'm going to save it. I'm going to close Adobe Illustrator, clear the artboard. I think that's fine. And now I'm going to go into the arrowhead location. I'm just going to open the file location. I'm going to click on properties, and this is going to be a little different if you're on a Mac, but it's essentially the same. And I can see that it isn't read-only, so it's not the Arrowhead file that's the issue. It is instead that I have to run Illustrator in administration mode. And you should be able to find it. It should just be in the program files, Adobe, or applications on a Mac. And this is a shortcut, but that's fine. I'm going to right-click on the icon here, and I'm going to go to Run as Administrator. And it just going to confirm that I do want to open it. And I'm running Illustrator 2018. You might be running a different version, but it should work the same. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open Arrowheads 2 because this is our edited version, but I want to save it. File, save as Arrowheads 1 in the location. I want to replace the original Arrowheads file, and I'm going to go to, I think it is required, right? No, it's resources. No, it's not resources either. It must be required. Oh, I've forgotten. Let's see. Presets? No. Let me open up, cancel. Let me open up our Notes 04 to get our location back. So it is support files required resources. So I'm going to file, save as, Arrowheads, and we're going to go into program files, Adobe Illustrator 2018. I think it's support files required resources, English US. And you can see the file here. I'm going to save. I do want to replace it. And great. So now we've replaced it. I'm just going to close this because we no longer need to revisit it. Or actually, I'll just work on our notes file here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another line here. Going to increase the stroke to 10. And I'm going to go back to the stroke panel here. And you can see the arrowheads. And you can see arrow 1, 2, 3, all of those arrows again. And now you can see our custom arrowhead. So I'll apply custom 3 to this start of the arrow. And we'll apply custom 2 to the end. And while these are not beautiful arrowheads, they are custom arrowheads. And you can also change the color and it will be applied. That's why it needs to be grayscale, so it knows that it's either 100% of the color that you chose, or it is a lighter version of that. And yeah, that's how you do a custom arrowhead. It's a little tedious to open up the file, edit it, but once you've done it, you can now create custom arrowheads, which is actually pretty awesome that is an available feature in Adobe Illustrator. All right, so next I want to show you guys how to create and edit graphs. So this is just an example of what we can do. On the top here, this is not part of the graph, this is just the title, but this element is the graph. And first I'm just going to create a new layer here. I'm just going to hide that layer, and I'm going to go to the left here for the column graph tool. The shortcut is J. If I click and hold on it, it expands and you can see all the different types of graphs. For today, we're just going to be using the bar graph tool. So I'm going to click on that, and I can click on anywhere on the artboard and it'll bring up this graph menu, which I can define the dimensions. I'm going to hit cancel though, because instead I want to show you that there's a second way that you can just marquee or drag out a rectangle, and then the graph will be within that rectangle. You can see also there's a pop-up menu here, that's the data, and I'm going to fill that out. This top left square or cell, I'm going to leave empty. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple of fruits, apple, banana, pear, and some numbers. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 2, 4, 1, 2, 1. And then I'm just going to put a double quotation mark, and I'm going to put days of the week. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Now these are going to be the different elements, right? So these are going to be the numbers that are going to show up on the graph. This is the legend, or a category, which you need to have the double quotation marks in front of. This is just needs to be an empty cell. And to change the graph, I'm going to go over here to the top right and click apply. And you can see that it's updated the information, but I can't see everything. I'm going to click on the black arrow tool, make sure that the graph is selected, and then I'm going to go to the scale tool, which is shortcut S, and it looks like this. I'm going to click within the graph here, hold shift, and I'm going to just drag in, and I'm going to bring all the elements in. I'm going to reposition it with the black arrow tool into the center, and now you can see all the information. So I'm just going to deselect so you don't see what's going on. So we have here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and the bar graphs show the different fruits and relative to how much we ate that day of that particular fruit. And you can change the type of graph. If I have it selected, I can right click and type will show up. But the reason why it's showing up gray is because we have the data box open. So I'm going to close out of that. And now you can see that type, data, design, column, and marker. We'll go over all 5 of these. Right now we're just going to go over type, but I want to show first another way to access this if you don't want to do the right click. With your graph selected, go to Object, Graph, and then you have these 5 again. So we're going to go to Type because we want to change the graph type. And here in the graph type menu, you have a bunch of options in order to change the graph. You also have 3 different versions, so you can change the value access and the category access. We won't mess around too much with that, but you can change a bunch of things. So if I want it to be a vertical graph instead of a horizontal, you can change it there. And if you ever want to go back into the data, if you want to change it, you can just right click data, go in here, and let's say you ate 4 apples on Monday. You misrepresented that. You would click apply. A couple other things you can do here is you can import data, which we'll go over later. You can transpose the row and the columns. You can switch the X and Y, and you can style the cells. This just means how they appear here. So right now we have 2 decimal points. Let's say I don't want any decimal points because these are all even, whole numbers. And let's say the column width is a little large. I want to make it a little smaller. So you can see now that has been reflected here. So we only see the whole digits, and the size of the cells has been shrinked a bit. So I'm just going to click apply again. I'm going to X out of here. And one other thing too is you can change how the graph appears. So if I have the white arrow tool right here, shortcut A, I can select on, let's say, this bar right here. I can double click on the fill, and this is our apple. So let's say we want to change it to red. Now the color did change, but it didn't change to red. And that's because our graph right now is grayscale. We can change that by selecting it with the black arrow tool, going to edit, edit colors, convert to RGB. And nothing's changed so far, but now if we go back with our white arrow tool, select what we want to change, and change the fill to red, we can see that it has been updated. Now, it might be a little tedious to go around clicking every single portion that's reflected by the apple. So another way to do it is if you hold down Alt while using the white arrow tool, you can click on it. If you click on it once, it'll just select one. If you click on it twice, it'll select everything. Sometimes you can click on 3. Now 3 will select even more. It just selects every single item. But that's not what we want. And then if you click a 4th time, it selects the whole graph. So it expands it every time. So we just want all things that are apple And you can see that the red is even being selected. So it's not just selecting by color, it's selecting by like. It's selecting that these are all considered Apple. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on the fill. Just going to pick a red and click OK. And you can see that everything for Apple has been updated. And I'll do the same for banana with the white arrow tool, holding down Alt, Option on a Mac. I'll click twice. I'll go to the fill. I'll change the color to yellow. And I'll do the same thing with the pear. Except this time I'll change it to green. Great, and that's one way that you can, edit the graph. You can obviously change other elements, but that's just the basics here. So another thing I wanted to show you is if you wanted to do something a little bit more advanced. So we're going to go to the next layer here, and let's say you have this graph already. What I'll do is I will open up with a right-click data. I'll open up the data so you can see. This is how I found the best way to do if it's a single data set rather than the fruit, which had multiple per day. We're just doing the percentage of goals scored outside the 18 for each of these Major League Soccer teams. And the easiest way for me to do it was to just put all of them in one column, the names of the teams, and the data in one column. And I came out with this result just to show you what it looks like. So I'm going to exit out of that. And what I want to do is I want to customize the look of this. And the way to do that is to have a design. All right, so here I have these designs, and these are logos of the Major League Soccer teams, and then they have a rectangle which will be representative of the bar. And first I'm just going to grab this, bring it down, and I just want to show you what we're working with. So I'm just going to change that from being a guide into just a solid stroke. And I'm going to zoom in and show you what we're working with here. So I have a vector version of the logo. I have a rectangle, a colored rectangle, and then I have this line here. Now the line I've turned into a guide, which you can do with Control 5, or you can go to View, Guides, Make Guides. And since I have nothing selected, there's nothing to make into a guide. You can also release the guide with Control Alt 5. But again, we don't have anything selected. And the reason why we have a guide here is to let the graph know where to extend from. So instead of extending the whole image like this and distorting it, by having this guide here, it's only going to extend, oops, didn't mean to do that, sorry. It's only going to extend, by having the line here, it's only going to extend this outmost red part so that the graph will be consistent outside. So both the logo will stay proportional and the graph, only the colored portion will move out based on the data. So just wanted to show you a zoomed in version of what we're working with. That's the same with all of these have that line, that guideline. So now that I have my designs created here, I have to turn them into a design. So how we do that is we select everything that we want to turn into one graph. So we select everything, and we select everything that we want turned into a graph design. We go to Object, Graph, Design, and here we have the Graph Design menu. And the only thing I have an option for is a new design, so that's what I'll do. And you can see in the preview box what we're working with, and it's perfect, exactly what we're working with here. I'm going to rename the design to NE Revolution, which is the name of the team. Click OK. And you can see here that we can delete a design, we can paste a design, and we can select unused. That's not what I want to do right now, so I'm going to click OK. And I'm just going to do the same thing for the rest of these graph designs. All right, and now you can see we have 5 graph designs here, one for each team, all named, so it's easy to recognize which is which. We can check in the preview box that all of them look correct. Great, and we'll click OK. So now that we have all the graph designs within the graph design menu, we're going to return to our original graph here, and we want to change the bars into those new graph elements that we created. So with the white arrow tool, I'm going to select the Dallas bar here. I'm going to go to Object, Graph, and then instead of design, we're going to go to column. And now we can see that we have our graph columns here. We've got our designs. This one's Dallas, so we're going to click on Dallas. And the effect that I want here, the column type, is sliding. I'll show you the other ones here, but sliding will give us the effect that we're looking for. We don't have a legend for this particular graph, so I'm just going to uncheck the rotate legend. I'm going to click OK. And you can see here that we have the logo as the beginning of the graph, and the blue rectangle extends out to the end of the data. And I'll do a couple more just so you can see. And for the last one, I want to show you some of the other options. So you can see here what's going on is that the only thing that's being stretched is that rectangle, the colored rectangle that's with each logo. So another way, if we were to choose the Chivas data set here and go to Object Graph Column, and we go to Chivas, we've been doing sliding, but you can do repeating, uniformly scaled, and vertically scaled. Uniformly scaled means that it would scale the object that you see here in the preview uniformly. That means both the height and the width to the exact size of the dimensions, which would look very strange. We'll do it though, uniformly scaled. And you can see that it's just enormous, and it kind of ruins our graph here. I'm going to hit Control Z. That way I get this black bar, and I know that that's the data. Object, Graph, Column. And we're going to choose the Chivas logo. And instead of uniformly scaled, we'll do vertically scaled. And we'll click OK. And now you can see that it's been scaled across the length of the data. Again, this is ugly, not what we want, but just showing it. I'm going to hit Control or Command Z to undo. We're going to show one more version. Graph, Column, Chivas, and repeating. And repeating has a couple of options. We can scale the design, or we can chop the design. We'll just do chop the design, and each design represents, so how much does it represent? So right now we're going by increments of 0.05. So we're going to do that as our unit. And we're going to click OK. And you can see here that the graphic has been repeated a number of times in order to get to the edge. So this is another way you could do it. Again, I wouldn't do it this way. It's not how I designed the graphics to be used in this graph. So we're just going to go back to the way we did it before, which is sliding. And there you go. That's one way to handle graphics, how to manipulate them. And you could do this obviously for more data and yeah, get a similar result. Obviously, you can also change the text. If you wanted to change the size of the text, you can use the white arrow tool and alt-click on all the text. And you can scale down the text this way if you wanted to affect that. And you can do the same here with the white arrow tool. You can select all the values on the bottom. And you can, let's say you want to change it to bold. You can do that as well. All right, and next I want to go into importing data. So right now we've been manually entering the data for the graph, but let's talk about importing data. And I'm going to go into my next layer here. And this is La Liga results after 12 games. So these are Spanish league teams, soccer teams, and these are how many wins, draws, and losses they have. And what I want to show is how you import data. So this is how the graph is going to be at the end. And I'm just going to show you the data. So you can see here that we have our top left blank. We have all our teams here on the left. We have our categories here with the double quotation mark in the beginning for win, draw, loss. And then we have our numerical values here for each team. But let's say we didn't have this here. We were starting fresh from no information. We just had a blank cell here and we were trying to create this. Oops, let me just delete. And let's see, let's hit, yeah. See, we're just going to assume that this is a brand new graph that we're creating. Or actually, rather, we will just create, save graph? No. Actually, we will just create a new graph, just so you guys can know that it's exactly here. So we're going to do a stacked bar graph. I'm going to drag out a rectangle to create a box for it. And now you can see I have just a standard graph here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the import data here. And I have the top leftmost field or cell selected. That is where the data will be imported from and extend out from. So import data. And just so you have to locate your file. And right here I have it as La Liga text. And I'll go into what this text document is and how you can set it up. But right now I'm just going to open it. And you can see that we have all the data here. We have the team names, the win, draw, and loss values. One thing is, though, we are getting our values here cut off, or our names cut off for the teams. So I want to go to cell style and just increase the column width from 5 to 10, let's say. Great, now I can see the teams. It's a little tight, but I can see the teams, which is fine. And I'm just going to click apply. And great, so we can see that the data has been applied here. And actually, it's a different graph than what we started with, but I actually quite like this better. I'm going to hit S to get the scale tool and just going to drag it in a little bit. I actually like this stacked graph better. Which one was it? The stacked bar graph, because this way you can see exactly the percentages relative to the other ones. So you can see that Barcelona has won the most games and has drawn the least. They've lost more games than the second place Real Madrid, but they've ended up getting more points because they get more wins. So I'm assuming that they play more offensive style to Real Madrid. All right, guys, so when importing data for the graph, this is how you need to set up the text file. So it does need to be saved as a text file, a .txt file, and it's tab delimited, which means that each cell is divided by a tab, and then each row is divided by a return or a different line. So you can see that the first item that we have is nothing, it's just empty. And then we tabbed over to our next cell because the top left cell in the graph needs to be empty. And we tabbed over, we have win, and then another tab. I think you guys get the idea. And then we hit return to get to another line, and that's a new row. The first set of data, this first column, are the names of the teams, and then we tab over for the next cell, which is the numbers. And that's how you set it up. So I have Notepad here for Mac. I believe the comparable program is TextEdit. It works just as well in that program. And that's how you set up the .txt file for importing within a graph. And that's how you would import data. Obviously, we can edit this graph, change it visually, but just in terms of the data, that's how you would import data and make a graph. And you could do this for multiple graphs. But yeah, I hope this video was informative and you guys enjoyed it, learned something new. Please let me know if you want something in the future, specific Illustrator tutorial, and if you enjoyed this one. Thanks again, guys, and enjoy the rest of your day. All right, bye.